Music is cool, huh? Billions of people consume music every day, and it's essential to everyone's way of life in some way if you really think about it. Music is incredible. The power of sound and the emotions it can bring to you are often really underestimated or not thought about. Everyone loves music. But have you ever wondered, how was music made? In the past, most mainstream stuff was recorded with analog audio, or a mixture of digital and analog throughout the process of recording. Synthesizers are very common in modern music, and a bunch of old stuff has synth on it too. During this video, I'll touch base on each of these topics mentioned previously. An analog synth, in short, is just an amplified electric current, commonly passed through a few effects to alter the sound. Analog synths really took off with the release of the Mini Model D. It was a standalone analog synth that was composed of the most used modules from its previous iteration. It was very versatile and easy to understand, with all the signals flowing from left to right. From there, the next big leap forward was with the invention of linear FM synthesis. Linear FM relied on digitally generated sine waves to make much more complex sounds. Chances are, if you have one of those old keyboards in the store, it uses linear FM. During the late 70s and early 80s, electric pianos started to become much more affordable, and thus, their popularity increased. Audio recorders have been around for a little bit. Pretty much like a digital tape recorder, audio recorders would let you record stuff into them, but not really compose music, unless you had $100 worth of external equipment. And even then, kinda just mess with audio files a little bit. An example of this would be Audacity. Sure, you could make music in it, but it sure wouldn't be the easiest thing to do. MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. MIDI has been the standard in music production since 1982. MIDI is data that the computer reads and plays back notes with. General MIDI was invented in 1991, and this standardized a bunch of stuff. For example, Channel 1 would always be allocated to a modulation wheel, Channel 7 always to volume, Channel 10, pan, and Channel 64 would always be a sustain pedal. It was later updated to General MIDI 2 in 1999, and this basically added more controller events and designated more MIDI instruments for people to mess around with. Before smartphones, MIDI was used for cell phone ringtones, as well as game soundtracks and tons of songs, still to this day. Almost everything you hear in mainstream stuff are either samples or MIDI instruments. Many modern premium pianos are just MIDI controllers nowadays. Obviously, there's still a market for electric pianos and analog synths, but these ones have no sounds built in, just a ton of parameters and usually some nicer keys. Trackers are a different approach to making music. They let off a very recognizable sound, but a lot of people have still never heard of a tracker before. Trackers were a way that you could write music on PC without needing to understand theory or have a musical background. Pretty much, beginners could hop into it. Sound trackers were limited in what you could do, though. The Ultimate Sound Tracker, for example, was limited to only 4 tracks, and each track could only play one note at a time. But these earlier limitations gave songs a unique sound. Chords were arpeggiated, and drum tracks had a very unique sound as well. These limitations inspired many sounds that artists use today, like arpeggiators, 808 drum beats, and many drum and bass tracks. For example, a bunch of video games were written with trackers, like Super Mario Bros., Unreal Tournament, and Deus Ex. Trackers became a community quickly. Many people modded and expanded the software, turning it into a better product over time, as Macs and PCs got better. This community still very much exists to this day. Eventually, trackers did die off, though, in the mainstream. As sound got better, along with the mediums in which we consume sound with, CDs were the things to kill trackers. They could store much more data than floppy disks that were required to use and run trackers, and trackers were just a bit finicky. Now that PCs could properly render songs, trackers were not convenient to use. When they first took off, they weren't convenient, but the community around them made them pretty solid and usable, if you have a little bit of time and some patience. DAWs are where the fun stuff happens. You could make, record, and mess with MIDI, and all of its parameters however you'd like. You could mess with high-quality synths, recreation of live instruments, or sampled ones, from everything to deep sub-basses to lovely Neptune arps. To this. DAWs, by far, are the most popular modern way to record and edit audio. And damn, it's fun. Tons of DAWs exist today. For example, the one I composed this video's soundtrack in, Live 11 by Ableton. It's a versatile, high-quality, intuitive, expensive software that I like to use. Ableton, for example, came out in 2001 with its original Live. Now in 2022, this is Live 11. Some other big ones are Cubase, which came out in 1989, Fruity Loops in 1997, which later changed and re-released as FL Studio in 1999, Reaper in 2006, and Pro Tools as well in 1989. It's still decently used in the pro scene. In short, music has evolved from not being able to easily make stuff without hundreds of dollars worth of equipment, to being able to make some jams with a tracker, into being able to make some jams like this. Music is pretty cool, huh?